Live from Los Angeles, here's Everyway Woman.
Hi, I'm Natalie with Everyway Woman. I'm here with Charlotte Laws, one of our co-hosts on Everyway Woman. Charlotte, thank you so much for talking to us behind the scenes.
Thank you for having me.
You're a published author. You write a lot of very interesting columns, and you've had very interesting experiences. I really want you to talk a little bit about meeting your family, all the work you just put in to meeting your brothers and sisters, which you knew about, but...
Yeah, they didn't know that I existed. And I was adopted at birth, and I found my birth parents about 26 years ago. And I had a relationship with my mom and my dad. They lived separately. They hadn't seen each other since they put me up for adoption. But my father never told his family about me. So we had this secret relationship for the past 26 years, even though he kept promising I'll tell them when they graduate from high school or college, etc. And I really wanted to meet my brother and sister. So
how hard was that, like knowing that you do have brothers and sisters, but...
Well, it was something I really wanted to do, and I started getting very afraid that people die, things happen, and then all of a sudden you never get to establish that relationship or meet that person. And my dad's sister had just died, he had told me, and so that's kind of what spurred it. And I thought, oh my God, I really better contact, because I don't have any other siblings. I have no other brothers and sisters from adoptive family or birth mom or anybody. So
and you put in a lot of work. You put in a lot of work to be able to go find them and meet them. How was that first experience?
It was difficult because the records are closed in most states, and this was back in the mid-'80s. So it was even more difficult back then. And I was really kind of lucky. I went back to the adoption agency, and essentially the lady, even though it was probably illegal, I'm pretty sure it was illegal at the time, she opened the file and left the file there with the names for me to see. And I was able to jot down the names from that file, and that's how I was able to then at least know the names and then go on a search to find them. And
so you had to be really aggressive. You had to be very aggressive to be able to go out and find this information and find your siblings.
Yeah, I think it's, in a sense, it's a little easier now, because what they'll do is they have registries, and so if you want to find either your birth parents or your children, if you're a parent who put your child up for adoption, you can at least put your name in the registry. And if the other person also says they want to meet you, then you'll be put together. So it's, in a sense, it's a little easier now. But still, the records are closed in most states. I think there are 4 or 5 states where you actually have open records to finding these people. And it can be difficult if the other person hasn't requested meeting you, because you have to go through court. You have to petition the court, and you have to have a good reason to be given these names. And usually it's a health reason that the court would be sympathetic to.
Did you ever feel like you were about to give up?
I didn't, because I kind of, I put a lot of effort into it at that big burst at the beginning. And so I was able to find them pretty quickly after I started searching, as far as getting, at least I got the names. And I was able to find my father very easily because I knew what school he attended, and he was part of the Alumni Association, so that was really easy. My mom was harder, except that she had a very unusual last name. And so I was able to find a whole bunch of her relatives, because it's a last name that's so unusual that the only ones in this country are my family. And I found all of them, but they didn't know where my mom was. So it took me several years of calling schools, saying, did this person attend? And, I found like all these little helpers, because this is back on the East Coast. I found like houses she used to live in, and the people would say, I'm going to help you find your mom, So I had all these little helpers up and down the coast, on the East Coast trying to help me.
What advice would you give someone that is in a similar situation and is at the brink of giving up? They are really, it means a lot to somebody to be able to meet their birth parents.
Yeah, and I really think that you have more in common. My belief is, and people like Steven Pinker, who's written many books, will say that you have more from nature than you do from nurture. So you are really going to have some similarities with your parents that you probably want to know about. You'll feel more connected. There'll be something you'll learn about yourself from the experience. But I would say that you should definitely get on every registry you can, and you go back to the adoption agency or whoever put you, wherever you were adopted from. And what I did essentially, and as I said, I was kind of lucky, but I had gone back to the hospital, and I had pretended to be from a doctor's office and needed information about people born on this day. Somehow they gave me a list The list didn't have my correct name on there, by the way, because my mom had gone through the free clinic and it wasn't listed.
Yeah.
But once I had this list of names, I said, well, maybe it's this name. That's when I went to the adoption agency and I said, is this the name? This is the one I think it might be. And that freaked her out because she thought I was going to contact the wrong people. So because I did that,
so that's why she was like, I'm leaving this open.
Yeah,
and
because she certainly didn't want me to contact the wrong people. That'd be a lot worse.
Yeah.
And so in a sense, it wasn't intentional, but it was kind of a ploy, even though it wasn't meant to be a ploy, and it worked.
Yeah.
So something like that might also work for other people out there. But I definitely encourage people to search for their birth parents or their children if you put your child up for adoption.
So the work you put into finding your family, that you have this characteristic, you're very aggressive, and I see that. And if you didn't have that, how did that develop? How did you become this person that's a go-getter, that's aggressive, that, you know?
I think a lot of it had to do with, I was raised in Atlanta, and I had a very traumatic, difficult childhood with my adoptive family, and I never had my father. It's not a very good relationship with my father. In fact, he basically doesn't talk to me for the past 25 years. And my mother committed suicide when I was 16, and my brother, my adoptive brother, was killed in a car accident 2 years later, and it was just a very negative environment. But the positive thing is that I think I was much more self-sufficient. I was more able to listen to my own views and just disregard everybody around me. And I wasn't in sync with the people that I grew up with. It was very racist, and I was not, and so I was criticized because of that. It was very, very Christian, and even though I was raised in Christianity, I was not Christian, even for as young as I can remember. So I was very much into creating my own views and trying to figure out what am I, what do I believe, rather than following the people of my community or my family. And that independence, I think, has really served me well.
Yeah.
So I would say that's what's
I want to kind
helped.
of jump to the book, to your book that you published called Meet the Stars. Tell me a little bit about crashing parties and what...
Well, yeah, I was the original Salahi. Do you remember the Salahis who crashed the White House?
Yeah.
They might have read my book. I don't know.
They learned that from you.
But my first book was published in the late 80s. And it was basically how to get into the Academy Awards, how to get past Secret Service to interview the president. And I have gotten past Secret Service twice. I did interview President Reagan by doing that. And I also...
How do you do that?
Well, you have to read the book. And you can get the book off of eBay, or not eBay, Amazon, probably eBay too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and there are just lots and lots of different techniques for how to meet VIPs. It doesn't have to be entertainment people. It can be Bill Gates. It can be, heads of corporations. It can be kings and queens. It can be athletes. It can be anyone. But it's very interesting kind of meeting people who have been successful and trying to see, gee, why are they successful, and networking with people so that it helps your own career. And so, yeah, and it was very exciting for me because I was doing it as a young person. I started doing this when I was about 16 years old. And so my friends would be going out to the bar or going bowling, and I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to hang out with Frank Sinatra. I am not going bowling. Sorry.
Tell me, okay, I know you have a ton of amazing celebrity experience. Tell me one that stands out to you.
Well, I mean, just mentioning Frank Sinatra.
Since we're on that topic.
I lived in Las Vegas for a couple of years, and I kind of befriended.
That's kind of the place to be to be able to meet all those.
It was, yeah, and I was there around 1980 or so, and I ended up sitting in the bar. I had kind of met his people and kind of gotten in with his people.
By yourself or with friends?
With him and his friends.
Okay.
And there were 2 seats empty before I sat down, and one was right next to Mr. Sinatra, and the other was right next to that seat. But I was sitting there like deliberating, should I really go for that seat? And so I didn't do it as quickly as I should have. So some other woman sat down in that seat, and I went, oh no. So I grabbed the other seat.
So it was a now or never kind of thing. It was like in the moment.
And she said to him, oh, can I have $500? I want to go gamble. And I thought, and he gave her the money. I thought, oh my God, maybe I should ask for 1,000 or 2,000, And I was like so close to saying, gee, can I have some money too? And then she came back and she goes, thanks, Daddy. And it turned out it was Tina Sinatra. I was like so glad I did not ask him for money. That would have been really embarrassing. embarrassing.
That's a really fun story. So let's plan to go to Vegas together sometime soon. Charlotte and I are going to go make plans. Have fun at the set today, and thank you so much for chatting behind the scenes. Bye.
Bye.